TIL that if you have a Brazil nut allergy, you can develop an allergic reaction if you have sex with someone who had recently consumed Brazil nuts. A study in 2007 documented the first case of a sexually transmitted allergic reaction to Brazil nuts. I don't have a Brazil nut allergy, but my wife did once buy this edible blowjob lube stuff that I ended up being allergic to. She put it all over my dick, and it was a really rough night. I tell you internet strangers this because maybe it saves someone from that absolute hell I experienced. I can never untell this story, but maybe it's worth it if it prevents another man's dick from turning into a fucked up, amateur-made balloon animal. Watching the news the other night when they said a plane carrying 6 Brazilian women crashed, killing them all. My 16-year-old son jumped up and ran to his room crying. After a bit I followed and asked what was wrong. He replied through a ton of sobbing, 6 Brazilian women died today, Dad? I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. I replied, excuse me? He responded with, I didn't even know there were that many women on the planet. I really like Brazil nuts, but they contain a fuckload of selenium and that can be bad for your health, mainly nails and hair turning brittle. Do you know how many Brazil nuts you'd have to eat to ingest the daily recommended dose of selenium? 1 nut. I used to eat them by the bag. Prior to this I only knew cashews could be seminally transmitted and cause a reaction. Happily my partner avoids nearly all nut consumption from the arbitrary giggle, but I'll have to add Brazil nuts to that list. Source: I have a nut allergy, chestnut, anguished face. I have a family member approaching puberty with a severe nut allergy. Parents just had the sex talk with him, and are preparing an additional talk about the risks involved in having sex with someone who has recently eaten tree nuts. Gotta ask, suppose you have said allergic reaction, and your partner eats Brazil nuts, and you eat aforementioned partner's ass. Can you still get an allergic reaction, even if they do a thorough deep clean back there? Brazil nuts are also the most radioactive food. I added have you consumed Brazil nuts in the last 96 hours to my pre-sex questionnaire. I'm not sure if the questionnaire has anything to do with it, but it seems like I haven't had sex for way too long. Allergic to cashews. Can confirm after sex with my husband the day after he ate many I developed itchiness and irritation down there for a few days. Thankfully I just get hives. But it's a thing. Damn, my GF has gone into anaphylaxis from Brazil nuts before. Luckily I don't like them anyways, but very good to know that I should avoid them entirely, or as they're known in Brazil nuts. Also, don't eat more than 1 or 2 per day or you can end up with selenium poisoning. Makes your hair fall out. Someone once told me the other name for Brazil nuts and I hate it because it always pops into my head when I see them in a store. That makes sense. I dated a girl who was allergic to mint, so I couldn't use a mint toothpaste, or else it would light her up. Babe, I've heard of steam fireworks, but you got me anaphylaxis and my heart's racing like a train on its tracks. If you have sex with a Brazilian who has recently eaten wax beans, most, if not all of, your pubic hair may disappear. Brazil nuts is also the medical diagnosis for a male who has had sex with someone who has recently eaten Brazil nuts. House MD had an episode on this. Only thing was that the man had eaten Brazil nut and also had sex with Brazilian. Don't eat Brazil nuts in general. Pretty easy to get selenium poisoning. Like 4 a day is too many. So technically someone could have an allergic reaction to a Brazilian nut from an American nut. Good thing those nuts are trash anyway. Who really gets upset if they can no longer eat them? Good job, I've given up sex, I suppose. Otherwise it'd just be one more thing to worry about. Peanut allergy can also cause a reaction when eating ass of someone who consumed peanuts. Hi, welcome to my TED Talk about how I got a sexually transmitted allergic reaction. SRCSM. I didn't realize this was uncommon. I've run into the same problem with my salmon allergy. Damn, all this time I'd been using regular nuts to transmit my rash. I feel ripped off. Just hope you don't learn what your grandparents called these back in the day. Having that second-hand allergic reaction is called getting nutted. Remember guys, do not have sex with a Brazilian that has nuts, folded hands. Now I have to ask her how many nuts she has swallowed recently. Anyone else's grandparents call these nuts something else? My GF has a nut allergy. She was swollen for a few months. I feel like this was the premise for an episode of House. This sounds so hilariously made up. It must be true. Oh, shit. I have Brazilian nuts with me all the time. Can get a nut allergy if somebody nuts in you. Does it apply to being fucked by a Brazilian man too? There is a joke in there somewhere. These nuts. I'm sorry y'all, but I gotta say. Brazil, these nuts. Don't even have sex with any Brazilians whatsoever.